Howdy y'all, welcome back. Prepare yourself for an incredible video. Today, we're not only going to be looking at the first photographs of Lucknow, India in 1858. These were taken by Felix Beato, but these photographs are going to be the first photographs taken directly after the rebellion of 1857. This rebellion saw the people of India rise up against the British, and the result of that was many of the ancient structures of India being reduced to rubble. Now, according to the current narrative, Lucknow sits in the ancient region known as Awadh, which was the granary of ancient India. Whoever controlled Awadh was said to have controlled the Doab lands, the fertile plain used for agriculture. We're told Lucknow successfully defended itself multiple times from outside invasions and was the center for most major Islamic dynasties that called India home. The architecture of Lucknow is said to reflect that. However, the historical region Lucknow sits in was only first mentioned in the 16th century, with all earlier history being formulated from excavations and educated scholars. So take everything you read with a grain of salt. Lucknow was said to be heavily involved in the rebellion of 1857, where the people of India rose up against the British. It appears the photographs we're looking at today, which were taken by Felix Beato under orders of the British, may have been one of the only surviving proofs of the absolute destruction which occurred on some of the most sacred and ancient buildings in India. Nowadays, mainstream scholars appear to focus on Lucknow as if the history began in the 13th century, but as we can see in today's video, there is vast evidence that suggests that the infrastructure of Lucknow dates back much earlier. As a continuation of what we've discussed in previous videos, the lands of northern India where Lucknow sits and of what is today southern Russia were referred to on ancient maps as Tartary or Grand Tartaria. One thing that comes to mind when we look at these structures is the universal evidence of architecture like this existing all around the world. We have much a debate for where this architecture truly comes from, but in the photographs here, we can see that there was a calculated effort to destroy and to turn some of these buildings into ruins. And again, we turn to the rebellion of 1857, and we have to ask, was this rebellion truly just the Indian people against the people of Britain that were looking to colonize, or could this have been part of a much larger conflict that we still have yet to describe? When we look at the true mystery of the old world, it is the dichotomy that is created by all of the different buildings, yet we have a similarity that seems to coexist amongst all of these buildings. We can look and we are told that we have colonial architecture here, that we have ancient Islamic architecture here, and that we have Hindu architecture here. But what we find in the photographs is that some of the most majestic buildings here, some of the buildings that were used for worship that may have been thousands of years old, were the buildings that have been struck during this conflict, and yet some of the other palaces of the current kings at the time still remain. It leads to much questioning of the narrative. And that is what really fascinates me the most when we're looking at India, specifically today, when we're looking at Lucknow. We can see a multitude of ancient buildings, or buildings that appear to be ancient, that have been directly affected by what was said to be the conflict that occurred in 1857. And yet, at the same time, we also have multiple palaces, seemingly the palaces of the kings at the time, that were allowed to stand. It's as if this was a manufactured destruction. And furthermore, something that really grinded my gears is that among all of the structures in Lucknow and in India that were affected by 1857's events, it appears that a lot of the structures that were reduced to ruins, or that were made to be no longer as glorious as they once were,
these were structures that weren't necessarily defensive structures. We see a lot of places of worship that were affected directly by the conflict in 1857. And then afterwards, we have these photographs that only show the magnificent infrastructure of what these buildings really once were. And we can only imagine how sprawling this landscape was. And I wonder if these structures were much more occupied, maybe even 20 years before these photographs were taken. However, after the British occupation and around the world, there's all different conflicts that have been written up in the narrative that explain away why many of these cities appear to be abandoned. But in India, we have the conflict with the British, and then we find these magnificent structures, and we wonder if there's a little more to the narrative than we've been presented with. I'm going to leave it at that for today. We have many more photographs to look at, all highly detailed, so I recommend sticking around for the end of the video. I'd love to hear which photograph stood out to you the most, and I can't wait to talk to you in the comment section and further our discussion on the next video. Cheers, y'all.